17-year-old Reuben Haney called his mother to let her know he was staying with his friend, David Brooks. He was never seen again. During his confession to the police, David claimed that sometime in the winter of 1971, he and Coral abducted two more teenage boys. They brought them back to the apartment that Dean had just moved into, and the boys were held there for about 4 days. Dean killed the boys and disposed of their bodies. Their identities have never been uncovered. It goes without saying that the parents of the missing boys would begin to search for their children. Many went to the police but didn't receive any help. The police assumed the missing boys were runaways and said that there was nothing that they could do. The parents were on their own. 15-year-old Elmer Wayne Henley, who went by Wayne, was one of David Hillegeist's best friends. He helped David's parents hang missing posters around the neighborhood. He would eventually meet David Brooks, who brought him back to Dean's apartment to be his next victim. However, Dean liked Wayne and thought he would make a good accomplice. He gave him the same offer he had previously given David, $200 for every young boy he lured back to the apartment. Dean told him that the boys would be sold to a sex slave ring. Wayne didn't take Dean up on his offer at first, but when his family fell on hard times, he gave in. At the beginning of 1972, Wayne lured a teenage boy to Dean's apartment and collected his $200. It's reported that neither Wayne nor David ever collected the $200 bounty outside of their first deliveries. It wasn't long before Wayne realized what was really going on, but he continued to assist the killer, obtaining and disposing of victims. According to David's confession, Wayne even killed some of the boys himself. 1972 was an especially deadly year for young boys in the Houston Heights area. The trio would go on to abduct, rape, and murder at least 11 teenage boys that year. 18-year-old Willard Rusty Branch went missing on February 9th. It wasn't until his sister identified his body in 1985 that he was finally connected to Dean Coral. Rusty's father, a Houston police officer, would die of a heart attack while searching for his boy just weeks after his disappearance. 18-year-old Frank Aguirre disappeared on March 24th. On April 20th, 17-year-old Mark Scott was forced to write a letter to his family explaining that he had received a job in Austin before being strangled by the Candyman. 16-year-old Johnny DeLome and 17-year-old Billy Balch, who was a former employee of the Coral Candy Company, went missing on May 21st. Billy was also forced to write a letter to his family explaining that he and Johnny had found jobs in Madisonville. 17-year-old Steven Sickman went missing on July 19th. 19-year-old Roy Bunton never made it to work on August 21st. 14-year-old Wally Simoneau and 13-year-old Richard Hembry were last seen on October 2nd. Wally managed to get a call into his mother before the call was cut off, and the boys were never seen again. 19-year-old Richard Kepner disappeared on November 15th. The trio were burying bodies at 3 different locations. The boat shed that was rented out by Dean, an area near Lake Sam Rayburn, and a beach on the Boulevard Peninsula. During that year, one boy, 19-year-old Billy Rittinger, was taken to Dean's house, strapped to the torture board, and raped. David told police that he managed to convince Dean to release Billy, and Dean agreed. The young man never went to police, and it's speculated that Billy may have been more involved with Dean than he made it seem, but nobody really knows. The trio were burying bodies at 3 different locations. The boat shed that was rented out by Dean, an area near Lake Sam Rayburn, and a beach on the Boulevard Peninsula. During that year, one boy, 19-year-old Billy Rittinger, was taken to Dean's house, strapped to the torture board, and raped. David told police that he managed to convince Dean to release Billy, and Dean agreed. The young man never went to police, and it's speculated that Billy may have been more involved with Dean than he made it seem, but nobody really knows. Dean only had one victim at the beginning of 1973. On February 1st, he killed 17-year-old Joseph Lyles without the assistance of Wayne or David. Soon after, he was diagnosed with hydrocele. This is a condition where fluid builds up in the scrotum, causing swelling. It's thought to the torture board, and raped. David told police that he managed to convince Dean to release Billy, and Dean agreed. The young man never released in its area near Lake Sam Rayburn, and a beach on the Boulevard Peninsula. During that year, one boy, 19-year-old Billy Rittinger, was taken to Dean's house, strapped to the torture board, and raped. David told police that he managed to convince Dean to release Billy, and Dean agreed.